Hey everybody, welcome back to the Matt Report. As always, your host Matt. Today, special guest with Cody Landefeld. Cody, welcome to the program, sir.
Hey, thank you so much.
So we ran into each other at Pressnomics out in your neck of the woods last year. That was an amazing event. Before we talk about all that fun stuff about the UI/UX of WordPress and business and building a startup with WordPress. What is the show all about? If you're just tuning in for the very first time, where the heck have you been? It's the #1 WordPress business podcast in the universe. Always have intelligent guests like Cody come on to the show to teach us how they built their WordPress startup or product or theme or plugin, whatever it might be. They're taking the time out of their busy schedule to help us learn a little bit more. And if you want to stay ad-free, mattreport.com/join. And join the pro members of the Matt Report. It's a great little community of folks just like you and I and everybody else in this crazy WordPress world, learning how to build their businesses and all that fun stuff. Back to Cody, CEO of CodyL.com, sort of your your freelance agency, but you got some other news, and you're also community leader at Gangplank, which I'm also interested to talk about. But give folks the elevator pitch who you are and what you do.
Sure. So Gangplank is where we work out of course, but I am head of CodyL, which is now, we're in transition to creating our company, which is now going to be called ModeEffect, and we're heavy level focus on user experience and UI design, more of a front-end design development company, which is basically what CodyL has been. It's just kind of been an old or new wine and old wineskins type of thing, where CodyL has been more recognizable by myself, since everybody refers to me as CodyL. Now it's kind of growing up into the actual real company. So that's what's new on our horizon. So CodyL will stay intact as me and my own personal brand, but ModeEffect will now be the company that I lead, and along with our team.
Awesome. Congratulations on that. I know it's a whole heck of a lot of work to kind of rebrand, sort of reposition yourself. So I look forward to seeing how you kind of rock that out in the coming year. UI and UX, user interface, user experience, usability, look and feel, design, all of these things. I mean, obviously it's a passion for you, but I mean, how important is it in today's day and age? Design in general, I guess, and how do people experience your product? How important is it in 2014?
So I think you're hitting the nail on the head. I mean, experience is the key word. Customer experience is absolutely the key word. And what I found is that, so many companies and so many individuals are doing more things online, and there's so much of an emphasis to move the business dealings that we typically have, or the mundane things, to putting it all in our face using online platforms and applications. So design, especially user interface design and user experience design, has become more important than ever. So that's really our passion, to solve those challenges for our clients and our customers. So that's really, my focus, to drill into that and talk around our customers having an experience on the front end, and of course that passion being there, but also a passion with how well WordPress fits into everything as well.
For those of you in the live audience today, if you have a question, go ahead and drop it in the question and answer section. Should be on the right-hand side of your screen. I'm running the Q&A app for the first time today, so it looks a little bit differently. So go ahead and drop your questions in, and hopefully we can get those answered during the show. Back to our hero, design, and let's talk about. I want to talk about the design aspect of a WordPress product, theme, plugin, but then I also want to go and talk about the experience the customer has, either purchasing or interacting with your product. Let's stick on themes, because themes has been sort of a hot topic as of late. What do you do as somebody setting out to design a new theme? What's your advice to them? Even if they're designing a site for a theme for a client, it's not a theme that they're going to resell. But how important is it to say, let me buy something off the shelf versus starting from scratch? you're buying a pre-made cake or you're starting from scratch, which one tastes better, that kind of thing. What's your advice for somebody in that situation?
So it always just comes down to goals. Whatever somebody is trying to achieve, a lot of times small businesses have a lot of the same goals. They're primarily lead generation and built for high traffic and content, but you've got these cases of very specific goals with different companies. So that really drives the design process in terms of the experience and in terms of the interface. Um, you know, of course, with creating something custom, with everything being goal driven, I think that also determines how elaborate they go. So in discussing choosing something off the shelf or making something custom, that's when a client lays out their goals, that also helps us choose which way to go in terms of going completely custom for something off the shelf, or maybe in a solution that's in between. Because I think that so often, and especially now how it's gotten to, I think there's a lot of commodity placed around WordPress and the themes, and there's a lot of do-it-yourselfers out there, and also a lot of businesses that don't have a large revenue goal, such as maybe a mom and pop shop that's sub $1 million in gross sales, or you've got maybe a company that's more of the 20 to 25 locations. That's more on the opposite ends of goals and what they would need their website to do, and with traffic and whatnot. So.
Does that dictate the size client or business that you'll work with, or that your up and coming sort of new company will work with? Like you mentioned, the mom and pops. I mean, if their goal is, hey, I just need a website, maybe something off the shelf will work. But somebody who's really in tune to what their goals are, I mean, what size businesses will you work with now for this kind of experience?
So we tend to want to work with a company that has some experience, a more hungry company that wants to be successful. It's a tough question to answer, because I liken clients to almost like dating. You always have the clients that really need your help, or really are attractive in the sense of you've got the skill set to help them. But I think the challenge is just how they guide you that. So in a perfect sense, we want to work with smaller clients that have maybe a less aggressive goal, or maybe even a smaller budget to really help them. It's just the challenge is just getting them to value that type of service. So typically that client would be less technical, less design oriented, and they're not going to be able to have resources in-house to create their website. And typically they get a great experience because there's not a wrestling effect with our process or what we feel like is best for them. But to answer the question, more straightforward, we are looking to work with some companies that are a little bit further along. We're certainly not a full enterprise company that wants to do business with enterprise folks, but we do want to work with companies that have a decent, or somewhat of a marketing budget to review their websites, and maybe even get on into user paths, or redesigning the front end while not necessarily going deep into the back end, whether it is a WordPress site or it's hooked into some different type of web application built with a custom API or something like that.
Awesome. You said, I think the word you used was user path. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can you give folks in the audience a little bit more detail about what that is?
Sure. So, when we're looking at a user experience challenge that a client is having, or either existing website application or a new one, we want to look at the journey of the user. We want to look at the path that they'll take to convert. So depending on where the budget is at and what the length of engagement is, we're going to spend some time with the client to talk about how people get to a certain point of doing business with that client. So there's definitely some work to be discovered with the user path. Like, a customer goes from coming onto the site all the way into converting as a subscribing customer. So, where may we potentially lose them? How can we entice them? Is there another path to where they maybe have some type of conversion but are encouraged to go above? All those things are considered with creating a new platform or bettering an existing platform. And what makes WordPress so effective is that oftentimes there's really great products that have done some of that work ahead of time. There's really great user experience folks that have put that together for WordPress. So it helps with the smaller customers, but for the customer that doesn't, that really can't fit their website into a $40 theme, and they really are running a online, primarily focused business, there's definitely a lot more time invested to make sure that we are, thinking about how a user takes their journey through their service or through the customer's, through our client's service.
One of the things that I know my design team and my project managers at my studio have sort of a challenge with is, well, aside from the services business, and we all sort of understand, like running an agency, it's so hard to say no to a check, right? When somebody's coming in and they do have a budget, you're looking at them, they might not be the perfect fit for a client, but they have the budget to spend. They sort of understand from a 30,000 foot view what they have to invest to get something to work, but sometimes they're a little on the fence of, oh, you have this discovery process? No, we don't need that. We don't need to learn about our customers. We already know our customers. You're gonna learn about my business, my market. Well, nobody knows it better than I do. So I can just give you a quick couple sentences, and here it is. How do you get people to buy into a real good discovery user experience process? Any tips or tricks for something like that, or is it just sort of you keep talking to them and keep throwing the spaghetti against the wall until they finally get it?
We go into a battle of wits.
Yeah.
We go into a series of riddles.
Yeah.
Whoever comes out the victor on the other end has to go either way. No, I think discovery works really well when we're taking on an older project, because typically, so in the WordPress space, small business specifically, there's of course less of a challenge to understand discovery. And our discovery process encompasses all phone calls, everything that leads into learning about our customer and their business. So, it's kind of wrapped around the entire project, although there's more of a heavier emphasis on discovery when we start from something that's already existing. But what we find really no pushback on is when we take over something. So, for instance, we've been chosen to participate in a competitive bid with a association here in Arizona, and one of our pre-conference discussions was they had understood that any company that would be taking on the project would have to go through a discovery phase and charge for that time, because they've gone out and got that platform developed custom by another developer, and there's no way we can come in and just kind of hit the ground running and know what libraries and what the thoughts were, if the code is commented on. So there's a lot of discussion to just manage that expectation. But I think the challenges you guys face with the clients, that happens to be the same with the smaller clients or with the newer clients, especially because, when you have maybe a solopreneur and they're very headstrong on no, I'm the guy, there's nobody who's better than me at doing this, and especially if it's a new project, discovery is a little bit of a challenge. So I think the tip I have is just to look for those opportunities when you have maybe something that's pre-existing, to leverage that as an opportunity to get more discovery time, because it's only going to be better for the client in the long run. And then in the opportunities where you have maybe something brand new, instead of maybe going through a heavy discovery phase, spend more time to set expectations on doing this the right way with whatever platform you choose to build it on. So in the WordPress sense, I find that there's a lot of misconceptions on database and how data is gathered or how things are assembled, or you've got everybody's favorite client who comes to the table with their already tool set. I've already got all these plugins. I don't need to hear from you on how to do this. I just need you to build it. I'd have time. Listen, Matt, I'd have time to do it myself. So I'm really busy. I'm just one guy. So here's $2,000. I know it'll be done in a week.
Yeah. Yeah. All I need is just like Amazon. It can be done, relatively quick. It's so simple, but let me know what you think.
It's like dating, though, too. I keep saying that, man. It's like, clients are just like dating. I mean, this is a tough conversation if clients are listening. If any of my clients are listening, I love you dearly, and I know you love your clients dearly. But you keep thinking about that. There's always you're not going to spend time with people who aren't going to value your time or value what you can bring to the table. So it's like we always use those examples as like terrible client interactions, but they just are what they are. I mean, and it's not the client's fault. I mean, I think what you're doing with the MAT report is awesome. You guys are putting out great information to help clients sort through things, and all we can do is take that educational approach. Sorry, man, I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's fine. No, I can run with it. Love it. Yeah, this is sort of the fine line that we walk on the MAT report is, we're talking about how to run our WordPress businesses and sort of improve our profitability, which I think is totally fair and fine to talk about, because just because we're on the web and everything is so transparent doesn't mean, and everything is such a global competitive market, doesn't mean that we can't also strive to be profitable. And I don't think it's a bad thing to tell our clients that we want to be profitable because it keeps us around, right? And if they like our work, they need us to be profitable so we can continue to help them. Everything can't just be done on a deal for them. Which brings me to one of your slides on building a startup on using WordPress, and you have the profile or the persona of an idea guy, and that's probably who we're talking about right now, is sort of this guy or gal who sort of heard that WordPress is super flexible and free, and it has all these plugins that do all this stuff. So let's talk about that person. How do you sort of steer them into the right direction from your experience?
So I think it goes back to our previous conversation about discovery. When you're building a new platform and you've already decided on WordPress, you just need to set expectations to help the client understand, okay, this is WordPress. This is not, this is not interchangeable in the sense that you can just kind of design everything the way you want it. We've had conversations with clients who wanted to redesign the entire dashboard and get WordPress and put in their own stuff, but at the end of the day, they're going to have a better experience if they work within the confines of WordPress. So, leading into Idea Guy, and by the way, do you know who that guy is in that picture?
I don't. No.
It's Ed Bassmaster. He's a YouTube guy. He has this one character that just looks goofy, and he just reminds me of like a stubborn guy or whatever. But I think it's best to help the client understand how WordPress will be able to fit for their startup. So, for instance, the conversation starts on a lower budget. The client doesn't have a large investment backing them. They want to get a concept app that works. So, really, what becomes valuable is working with a WordPress consultant to put out some type of a concept. So, for instance, if we can get the clients to buy in on that idea of building a concept and building it strong with WordPress, we can get out to market quicker, even if it's out to a smaller audience, and start getting really good feedback. And that's what we really encourage people to do. It's like, okay, so your budget is $10,000, and you need to get some type of concept out. Well, you consider, okay, are we the right firm for you? Can you provide the right value? But then the conversation is really early on with how's WordPress going to help you? Do you really need a CMS? Do you really need to have all the things that WordPress does? We need to heavily leverage plugins. And if that's the case, the how needs to be built around the strengths of WordPress. So, I think anytime there's pushback with that, it really erodes the opportunity to do something valuable for them, because what they're going to end up doing is just racing to find somebody who's cheaper to get their dream project out. And I think ultimately, at the end of the day, I mean, you could spend all the time in the world and all the money in the world, little or a lot, but at the end of the day, your users have to really connect with the service that you're providing or the product that you're providing. So if it's a new, unproven concept, I'm always about, I'm not even trying to get you to spend a maximum amount of dollars. Let's decide on something that can be effectively built. Let's put it out and let's iterate upon it if need be. And even if it catches traction and needs to be rebuilt completely custom, it's not like the time you spent in WordPress um, will be wasted, because you essentially you can repurpose some of the design, and you can get some really good feedback from your users, even if you take it into Python or take it into Ruby application or something like that. I mean, who knows? But um, it's good to look at WordPress as that tool when there's a cost conscious project. But I'm finding in a couple of cases with the projects we've done that are not WordPress related, they didn't even need a content management system. So I think there's more drilling down on that functionality level when they're not really essentially in love with WordPress, but maybe essentially in love with a plugin or what a plugin can do for WordPress. So sometimes it may be even more cost effective to take them off that path of WordPress. I know I said maybe a taboo
Right.
on a WordPress.
Listen, folks, don't start closing your browsers just because Cody recommended that. There might be something other than WordPress out there. And by the way, just a quick commercial break. If you are listening in the background, we are using the Q&A app today. So if you click back over to the screen, I notice that the viewership is rising. So if you're just listening in the background, you can drop questions in right in the right-hand side of your screen. We get those questions answered for you. I'll ask Cody those questions either at the end of the show, or I'll work them into the conversation. But back to what you were saying, Cody, WordPress isn't always the right answer? Question mark?
Yeah. And I'm sorry, I was trying to say something, but my mic cut out for a while. It was weird. No, not really. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I think as a consultant, at least our approach is based on integrity. We respect the client's budget and time, and know that not everything that best serves our process is what our clients need. And sometimes that means we refer them somewhere else or whatnot. But if we're going to be working with them, we want to make sure they have the absolutely best experience with WordPress possible. So without a shadow of a doubt, any client that ever needs a content management system, there's no question of going with WordPress. But in the sake of maybe a startup that only needs to show a concept, or is heavy on the front end emphasis, that doesn't need a blog or whatnot, and they're just trying to get a front end application out, sometimes we take them off that path where we can still deliver value for them. And yeah, I mean that does happen for us.
Do you have an example of one that you maybe said WordPress isn't the answer and gave it to another platform like a Drupal or an expression engine or something else?
In some instances in e-commerce, so we've worked with a company here in Arizona that's got over 25 retail locations, and they needed their shopping cart to match up with their POS in their stores. We're talking thousands upon thousands of SKUs and products, and we determined that WordPress wasn't the best fit. So, going to something a little heavier like Magento, and although being able to build the website, the marketing website in WordPress, we took them off the path of WordPress for e-commerce just because of the challenges with how WordPress is made.
I hope no one's in the audience who's a diehard WooCommerce fan, because they'll be outside with stakes and burning torches waiting for me to leave. Let's talk about just roughly off the cuff, what's the percentage of your WordPress work? 90%, 98%?
I'd say it's about 40% right now.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah, and what's funny, it's just because what we're looking to do is we are looking to work with some clients more long term. I mean, it's tough. I mean, going back to that dating metaphor, we want to spend more time and build a relationship with clients, and it's really a challenge to do that on both sides. If we're focused on a 4-week to 6-week engagement to build a small business site with WordPress, and they essentially don't need us until there's like an emergency or something, and it's no way to really build a relationship. So we're looking for as many opportunities to work with folks with WordPress as we are to build, a front-end application that will take longer. It's something that there's no model to build it off of. There's maybe something visually, but you're not repurposing code. You're kind of building things from the ground up, and there's a high level of enjoyment with us. So with ModeEffect, we're looking to find more opportunities for clients to do that type of work as much as possible, while still keeping our project with WordPress going, and looking to improve that.
There's two camps that I usually run into. and probably just because it is what it is. But a lot of folks say that yes, WordPress can power an app and should probably be a good framework for an app, and others say no way. You know, we're compiling in C# today. That's what we're going to do. What's your thoughts on it as an app framework, or does that not even exist? And what other technologies are you using when you're not using WordPress for an app?
Yeah, so I mean, what we're focused on, we're a front-end design firm, so we're not doing any real back-end development. So there's never an instance where we've disqualified WordPress as a full application platform. I think it just always comes down to giving an honest assessment with the knowledge that we know about the customer project and previous experience and what we know about WordPress. So there's never a dogmatic like WordPress will not work. I think that if we can come to the table and the client can understand taking the best path for development, we can create that with WordPress and make that work. But if they have a specific vision, or the idea is already tied to APIs that make it very difficult to work with WordPress, or not as cost effective, then obviously I think that then our hands are tied in some of those instances. But it all just depends. I mean, we never have steered a client away from building an application away from WordPress, at least on a back-end interface. In fact, we've done some applications in WordPress that are more web app-based. One of the projects that we have on our portfolio is a video website for Samaritan's Purse, where there's a lot of automation on the back end. The client actually did want to use WordPress, but we were able to leverage that and keep that, working with their third-party video provider, and had a lot of the automated delivery based on posts, and it was a perfect fit for WordPress, and we didn't have any challenges with getting the client on board for that.
When you're now making this sort of transition to Mode Effect, are you going to focus on a particular vertical or customer that's looking to build an app? Is it somebody that's looking to get funded in a startup, sort of typical startup scenario? Is it whatever comes across your way that's just looking to build an app, a well-established company that just needs some mobile app or web app? Are you going to hone in on anybody in particular?
Yeah, so that's a good question. Retail is definitely been a vertical we've had some great experience with, and I think we'd like to build more value for retail customers. So sometimes that's just a straight shot into e-commerce, but sometimes there's more of a subsidiary type of service that they need. Maybe that's an internally focused website, maybe an intranet, or a multi-location promotional site. But that's one vertical that we want to stay active and engaged with. We're also looking at, oddly enough, we're doing a lot of work for faith-based organizations, and I think we could provide a lot of value to churches and whatnot. Especially with WordPress. I think WordPress is just a perfect marriage for a church site. It produces a lot of content and media. Manufacturing, technology, startups as a whole, technology startups. There's a lot of opportunity to engage with them more on the concept phase, because we're never going to. I can't say never, but for the immediate future, we're just not going to be the best fit to try to bring the application beyond, like the mobile app, the back-end development all in-house. It's all going to be focused around the front end. So we're happy to play the part of maybe building the front-end engagement out to get funding, maybe in a shorter sprint of a 2-3 month, where we're pretty, all in on development and able to take it out. Even if there is an end to that relationship, I think that's a good place for us to be in, because at the end of the day, we have to be honest with ourselves and what we do best. I don't have 4 back-end developers ranking away in our office. It wouldn't be helpful to have a client do that with us if we can't deliver that, 100%.
I want to push back just a little bit on the using WordPress as sort of a concept to position yourself, position your startup, your idea to somebody, your concept, without having to do all the sort of investment, like you said, back end, and even maybe some of the front end experience stuff. And maybe you can tell me where folks should draw the line of when they should use it as like this very core MVP positioning, and then when they should invest, like you're recommending, in some good UI UX. example.
So I
Idea
think
guy. Oh, sorry.
oh,
I was gonna set the stage, but I think you maybe already know where I'm going.
I'm too eager, man.
I just figured that I'll do it real quick. So I figured that the idea guy comes along. He's got the idea. Maybe he or she already knows. You know what? I can get $50,000 of seed funding, which isn't a whole heck of a lot of money. I think I can get 50 grand to do this. They could take a theme. They could move some widgets around. They could put a contact form. They could maybe use a membership system just to show a simple login process, just to prove the concept, without any kind of real upfront investment on design. Yes, no, or yes, that's a good starting ground, and then you need to invest at this point.
Yeah, so I think as far as technical functionality, that could be the length of where they need to go and then spend their money on the front end. I did want to come back and answer that question as far as where to draw that line. I think ultimately it just comes down to technical functionality. Sometimes design is sacrificed, or the front end is sacrificed as well. But typically where the conversation starts with having to leverage a bunch of plugins, I think it's really hard to prove that concept that WordPress will be the full vehicle to take it to maturity as far as a product. I think what would be the best case scenario for our end, or for a company's end, is if they have the budget to build in some custom functionality or plugins within WordPress that were their own, proprietary, or even something that could be eventually turned into a premium plugin or something that people can purchase. But I think that that'd be the best way to go. Typically, when it leads with, oh, we've got, Gravity Forms, and we have, 3 other plugins that are essential to, make this thing, and basically it's just because we don't want to build that out ourselves. Typically, that's like, okay, so either we're going to have to just make this concept and use these plugins for now, and then go back and redevelop these on the back end when you have a little bit more budget to work with, creating custom. Not that creating a form is difficult, but just using Gravity Forms as an example. So that's kind of a line to draw. I wouldn't say that dogmatically you can't build an application on WordPress. I think you can. It's just the client to be able to understand how and when that makes sense. So I think there could be a really easy path to get as much bang for the investment initially, to go out and show folks the concept while leveraging maybe some plugins and spending the money on the interface, but then coming back and doing the back-end work and some modifications on user interface after the fact. I think that's probably the best way to go about it. So I think you're kind of right on the money with that.
Awesome. You must be exposed, and I want to just talk about Gangplank and sort of the benefit of working in a community co-working space, and sort of that experience there. Do you come across a lot more opportunity because you're there? Do you just come across, or do you just have a lot more people to kind of bang heads with working at a facility like that? Your thoughts?
Well, I think there's a lot of synergy that happens when you're in somewhere else than a bedroom.
Yes.
Unless you're in the massive multiplayer online gaming experiences. Just being in a place where there's a lot of energy. Gangplank has graduated some really amazing startups and has incubated some really great companies. So the draw from being in a place that is used to dealing with companies like ours and like theirs, there's a real attraction to that, but just mostly around people. So, we're kind of in an area where we can grow our company. We can incubate our company here, and we can grow it to a level where we can bring some more folks in and expand as we need, without the huge financial burdens of going out and getting an office space, or tearing down walls and building more construction based on growing our team. So that's some of the added value for Gangplank. There's definitely a focus here in Arizona from the entrepreneurship level of seeing companies out of Gangplank. Although in our location, it's not really. We're in a secondary location for Gangplank, so we're not in as much of the focus. We're not in as much of the noise as we'd like to be. And there's some added benefits to that as well. But I think for anybody out there looking to grow the company beyond themselves, moving into a place like this is highly valuable because you may have other people that are like-minded that don't want to do all of the load of business development, project management, design, developing, all the fun stuff that we get to do as business owners, or mopping the floors when all the employees go home. There's some benefits to sharing that load, and there's been a lot of companies that have been formed out of, maybe solopreneurs coming together and saying, we really want to build something bigger than ourselves, and getting an opportunity to work out of a place like Greenfield is highly valuable for that.
Do you see, I mean, now since you have that exposure, you're seeing these other startups come into this sort of accelerator or incubator / co-working collaboration facility. 2 weeks ago, I had co-schedule back on the show Garrett Moon for a second appearance because he just secured $500,000 in angel investment for his co-schedule plugin. Matt from Matt Mullenweg announced another $160 million investment today to bring the valuation just north of $1 billion. What do you see for the future of WordPress startups and entrepreneurs? Is it finally catching up? Is it still going to be a slower, steady path? What do you see from your seat?
Well, I think the uninitiated folks are coming around slowly to WordPress. Beyond the technology fight of open source and what the platform is built on, I think now the software has a decade beyond itself, or kind of under its belt of development, and it's got some staying power in the user base. I think when you have that recipe with technology, where there's a user base and there's a long track record of development, it makes investors a little bit more, or I should say, less gun shy to put some resources behind that. And I think that you're going to probably see more and more of that. I mean, WordPress definitely is having its day currently, but I think the party's still going to kind of go on here. I don't see that there's no real competitor in that space that seems like it's apples for apples comparison on taking WordPress out. So I think we're going to see this trend continue and get better. Case in point with a lot of e-commerce, or I should say, I'm sorry, a lot of enterprise folks coming on board with really taking a good look at WordPress. There's so many different examples of companies that are investing heavily in it, and I think you're going to see that trend continue. But although, again, the uninitiated are always slower to react in that sense. So I think those examples of Garrett Moon and Matt Mullenweg, I think that's just two other steps or two other chapters in a story that's still yet to be finished.
That's awesome. I mean, I know my audience is definitely excited for what's to come. I know I am as well. Let's talk about back to just UI UX real quick. What is it? Is there anything that WordPress could do better visually, design-wise, from your point of view? Either in the admin or in the content creation area, what is it about the UI or UX that WordPress can improve upon?
So I think that it depends for the user. So there's so many segmented cases that I've found myself like saying, this is where the UX should be better, this is where the UI should be better. I think that focused around somebody who's creating content, I think they're doing as best of a job as they know how to put that together. Where the challenges happen is the extendability of WordPress. So for instance, how WooCommerce is built, or how a lot of plugins are built when they're building on top of what's already there existing in the publishing or the post engine. I think that's where we see the challenges on user experience. So you'll see like an area on the right-hand side of the post area moved way down and moved up, and the end users don't always understand where to go with that, or how much plugins and whatnot can bloat things. So that's no easy challenge to solve. I don't think it's as easy as describing, well, let's just do it this way. I think that there's definitely a lot of thought with how that could be solved, and I think it just comes down to users. I think at some point we could see a flavor of WordPress come out that's more based towards the user. It's got more of the commodity type product, maybe what the Mark Jacobs of the world are creating, like with that front end editor. I see that fitting into like a core version of a user-based WordPress product, and then maybe more of a developer, more of a halfway between user developer flavor of WordPress. Kind of like, have you broken your phone ever?
Yes.
You see that process? They ask you if you're a user or if you're a developer, and they obviously give you more and more control to do what you need to do. And we think that it would be great, just like WordPress has a multi-site component, maybe creating different ways where we can shape WordPress for applications and whatnot from the standpoint of the back end. And I think that's really the only universal answer I would give, because it just tends to get a little messy when you're combining plugins or you're doing different things on the back end. But even then, that constraint, again, I mean, you can find an argument to keep everything in there,
Do you ever envision there being like two separate packages that folks have to download, a beginner and an advanced, and the advanced just has more libraries and options and things like that?
I think so, or just the ability to plug that stuff in. I mean, that would also help the development community of WordPress as a whole, because sometimes I get a little concerned. I feel like we're supporting folks that are putting out commoditized tools to help people get out and online fast, and that's great, and that's not necessarily our user, but are we cannibalizing all of the people that really could invest in good plugin? Are we confusing people that would invest in good, website development, if in fact we had two different types of flavors for them? I mean, I don't know what the right answer is, but I do wonder, and some of that, with how much of an emphasis we're creating WordPress to be usable, it's as good as it is. It's only good in the sense of it being more usable, but creating more and more things to make it easier for just focused on the less technology savvy person. I do wonder if we're sometimes running a risk of cannibalizing the development community. I don't know. I think that sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. It is going to be interesting to see where all this stuff goes, especially with sort of all these contributed plugins to the interface, what gets adopted, what doesn't, what shouldn't get adopted and should still remain on its own because of the innovation that maybe a particular team has around a plugin or a way that the plugin operates on WordPress. Now that you're going to be sort of, I don't want to use the word pivot unless you think so, you're sort of changing maybe the direction and rebranding of the company. If you could step back in time, is there one thing you would sort of redo if you had a chance to, now that you've learned all you've learned?
I think it would just be having more of an emphasis on service. What I find has been the challenge for me, just like a lot of solopreneurs out there or smaller companies, is that we're really great at what we do, but the service level of what we do that every business has to have is not really ready for prime time. So if we could start with, I was just watching a Steve Jobs video back when he came back to Apple, and somebody was basically disagreeing with a statement he said, but his answer was, he got down to saying, we start with the customer experience first and work our way backwards with technology. And I think so many often, even in the WordPress community, we're leading with technology. Don't you understand what I can do for you? All those things, and a lot of times the customer will only be loyal and responsive to the level of service that they get, and they can really have a great experience with you. So if I can step back, I think that one of the cores of building a business on would be service, with allowing all of our customers to have a really great experience working with us, and having that type of brand loyalty be created from our company. That's what we're looking to do with NoteEffect. Now getting an opportunity to kind of not start over, but turn a page. Whereas now we're a company, you're not going to call the number and just talk to me, and while I'm building the other customer website, I got to talk to the other customer about meeting and discussing something else or whatnot. So we're definitely aiming to improve a better customer experience and more of a brand loyalty with Notify.
Are you bringing on new employees, or are you just kind of expanding sort of the team set and kind of being more collaborative?
We have 12 more employees we're doing that. No, just
Wow.
kidding.
You had me going.
We've been building a team all along, and that's why it's been just strange saying, "Hey, it's Cody L. and his band of young men," and his band of developers. I want to bring more of a company identity while keeping Cody L kind of an identity as myself, because everybody refers to me as Cody L. Cody L sounds like a person's name. So we've through the course of the company, we started in 2005. Through the course of the company, we've found really great relationships with people who work in our company, and I want to bring them more to the forefront and bring that company focus to the forefront rather than just making it seem like you're just working with me. You know what I mean? So, and not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just I think it's the right thing for us to spotlight more of our our team and whatnot. So it'll kind of be the same behind the scenes while looking to expand as need be.
Yeah, it's sort of a blessing and a curse, right? I mean, when you start a company and sort of it's the personal brand, it's all that we hear about, like, hey, how to get more customers, how to connect with your audience, you be more personable, you start your personal brand, you really get yourself out there, and then 2, 3, 5 years later, people still expect to sort of talk to you, and oh no, I want to talk to Matt, I want to talk to Cody, and you're like, no, I'm the new project manager here. You have to kind of go through me. And then there's sort of like this little sort of standoffishness, and it's something that I'm still kind of dealing with myself as my agency grows. But I have a few clients who I wouldn't say they get annoyed by it, but they're always like, well, I really want to talk to you. And at the end of the day, I still do, and I'm still involved, obviously. But it's usually that first point of contact that they were so comfortable with. It's always difficult to kind of scale out of it. I guess it's back to user experience, right? If you're setting that expectation, you're sending a warm welcome email, here's a new project manager, so on and so forth. I guess that's one way to tackle it. So definitely some interesting stuff. Let's jump into the second segment of the show, talking about what's in your toolbox. What special app or piece of software do you use to get through your workday that maybe people don't know about? Something like an Evernote, but something a little bit more sort of top secret.
Well, before I answer that question, we should talk about our product sponsor for the show today.
Yeah.
Both wearing the same in-case headphones.
The first person to finally join the show that wears the same, I don't know if that's going to come in, the same in-case headphones. I always get flack from this from other WordPress podcasters because they're big, bright white. But Cody also has the black version on, which is sort of my counterpart here. It's sort of like kind of fitting after the May 4th, right? Sort of black versus white, Star Wars kind of thing. So what else do you use? What pieces of hardware do you have, or maybe other software that you use?
So this isn't really a secret, but one of the things I had to get right away was the Retina screen for the MacBook Pro. I think that just took the quality of our work up a notch because we were able to see all the websites we're creating. I mean, essentially, I test everything, so it drove up the level of our quality of our work a lot, and I got this. And I got it like right away. It was right 2012 when it came out. 2012? Yeah, I think so.
Yep.
Had to get that right away. One of the things we use, we're always using new text-based editors, but we use Transmit a lot for our FTP. We're using GitHub for all of our stuff, but Transmit's been great in conjunction with Dropbox. So based on client permissions and whatnot, I can give and take access from developers by saving droplets into a Dropbox folder, and essentially they just run the folder, open the droplet, and they can do whatever they need to. That's been really great for production. OmniGraffle is always a go-to when we're doing a lot of user experience stuff, a lot of wireframing, whatnot. We're looking at products like Sketch. I see a lot of folks starting to use Sketch for doing a lot of their image stuff, and so much of what we do is kind of eliminating a lot of those heavy lifting programs like Photoshop. I mean, I'm still a creature of habit to go into Photoshop, but we use Pixelmator for a lot of stuff, or a designer primarily uses Pixelmator in a lot of instances. So I think we're not really unique in the sense of what we do. I mean, we utilize a lot of stuff at Dropbox still, a lot of stuff that we share, and we look to keep our client stuff under wraps as much as possible. I'm trying to think of something that's really unique. So I use Slack for our company communication.
Yeah, I just listened to the founder on This Week in Startups.
Yeah, did you see he was the guy who created Flickr?
Yes. Yep.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, that was an amazing story.
Yeah, I always love like when somebody who's been really successful with a product comes out with a new product. I always feel like that's a lot of times that will help you get over the hump of just trying something, but that's not always the case. I know the guys from Twitter put out that one app that kind of bombed. What was the question asking app? I forget what it was.
Yep, I know exactly
what was it called?
Yeah, I can't remember, but I remember it coming out, and it was supposed to be awesome.
Yeah, it didn't work out so well, I think.
That's what happens in this wonderful world of startups. Let's jump into the lightning round. Ask you a series of quick questions, and you'll have a series of quick answers. What is the one plugin you cannot live without?
Driver Forms.
What is your favorite WordPress business book? WordPress or business book?
My favorite WordPress or business book?
Or a business book.
Oh, the email.
Yeah, that is a good one. That's one that's one of the ones that people would always recommend on the show, and I was just like, I don't want to read this, like judging a book by its cover. I'm like, no, this isn't for me. And then I read it. I'm like, oh my God, I should have been reading this eons ago. What's a quote that you live or run your business by?
Treating our customers as we want to be treated. The golden rule.
So is that also the best business advice you've ever received, or have you received something a little bit better?
To pare it down, yeah, because it just really makes it simple. I know it's super basic. And there's other quotes that I've thought of. I mean, one of the other quotes, kind of like I mentioned before, Steve Jobs is starting with the customer experience and work backwards at the technology. I think at the end of all of that is the emphasis on the customer experience. So treating them the way that I want to be treated as a customer is definitely a quote or a mantra to live by for me.
That's awesome. What's the longest a client project has ever taken?
Oh, maybe about 1.5 years. I mean, I'm sure people have outdone me in that instance.
Yeah, it's so funny. I bring this up every single time I hear it. But when I ask that question, anybody who's into design, they laugh, right? And they get a bit of a snicker because they understand. But developers, they never have that. They're just like, oh, whatever, 2 years. Straight face, like they don't, for whatever reason, don't feel the same pain points, I guess, as a designer would. It's kind of weird, kind of an interesting thing I've kind of figured out. If you had to switch to another CMS, what would it be?
Squarespace. I love the design. I haven't used it though. I mean, I just like the design of it.
Nice. Who should I interview next?
Terry Hulk Hogan.
I wonder what he knows about WordPress.
Yeah, it'd just be cool to ask him a bunch of WordPress questions and see him get really frustrated.
Next. What's the one question that I didn't ask you that I should have?
I don't know. I don't think anything. I'm as prideful as I am. I don't really like to talk about myself, and that's also because of pride, I'm sure. But I don't know. I mean, I think we covered a broad range of topics. So yeah.
Awesome. You'll be down in WordCamp Miami. Are you going to be doing the talk about UI and UX?
Yeah, I'm going to do the future of UX. It's kind of more of a philosophical talk, but I think it's an important thing to be putting ourselves, as designers and developers to think about, because how the experience people have with things and using things is so big. So yeah,
awesome.
I'll be there.
What time is that going down so folks can join that?
I think it's right before lunch.
Nice.
Yeah, I kicked off the conference last year.
Nice.
Were you there in Miami last year?
I was not. Miami, this will be my first trip to WordCamp Miami.
Oh, cool. Yeah, it's a great WordCamp. So.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Doing the podcast roundtable on Saturday and then closing out the show on Sunday for the business track. So that should be fun. Cody, where can folks find you on the web to say thanks?
You can go to codyl.com and go to modeeffect.com as well, just to keep your eyes out for our upcoming launch. But codyl.com is the place to go and see our work and get in touch with us. And
anybody looking for a job? I'm assuming it's Cody at codyl.com.
Codyl at codyl.com, yes.
Sweet. There you go, everybody. If you're looking for a job in the new business, he's hiring 12 people. You heard it first. Looking to grow out that staff as fast as possible.
Yeah, so we got to have the clients. So let's have the clients come in, and then we'll hire the 12 people shortly thereafter.
That's perfect. Perfect recipe. Well, everybody listening still in the live show, thanks very much. Thanks for tuning in. MattReport.com, MattReport.com/subscribe. Join the mailing list if you want to support the show. The best way to do it is tell your friends, folks, and family. If not, if you want to join a pack of awesome WordPress entrepreneurs, it's MattReport.com/join. Private community over at Matt Report where we do monthly calls, much like this, but just for the community, private forums, and all that fun stuff. Check it out, MattReport.com/join. Thanks, everybody.